everybody. Welcome to episode 5 of The Green Light.
Green Light!
Woo!
Episode 5 actually sounds really good.
It does sound good.
Like, that's a nice little milestone that we have going.
Alright, look at that. I am Lauren Hunkele.
I am Jackson Campbell.
And basically what we do here is read unproduced plays and screenplays by up-and-coming writers and interview those awesome people who wrote them. And before we get started on our detours for the week, we did want to say a few words about some of the recent events that have been going on.
Yeah. So there have been a lot of things going on in this country lately that are really impossible to avoid. You can't go on Twitter or any social media without seeing it, which truthfully is good. Because, even though as a podcast, a place typically meant to be like a nice distraction from things going on in the world, we normally may not want to comment on some things that are going on just to continue to be that distraction. That's not going to be us this time.
No.
In this case, it's a pretty no-brainer that we have to speak out. Everyone should be speaking out. I believe, and I think Lauren believes, that now's a time where people kind of don't need to be distracted, but instead need to be aware. They need to be active. Most importantly, they need to be listening. Police brutality, mass incarceration, racism, they're all here. Like, unfortunately, we're not in a post-racist era, despite what some people think. Black people are still dealing with some of the same things they've dealt with since they were enslaved hundreds of years ago. It seems ridiculous to have to say it, but Black Lives Matter. There's a podcast that I listen to, part of my take, that, they have a running joke that it's like, they're an anti-Nazi podcast. And it's like, it's funny, but, it's kind of weird that now you kind of have to say it.
Yeah.
Very unfortunately, you have to say things like that.
Be like, if you don't believe Black Lives Matter, you don't belong here.
Correct. And until Black Lives Matter, all lives will not matter. So, that kind of rhetoric, the all lives matter crowd, kind of not really tolerated. Yeah. And by kind of, I mean certainly not tolerated. And obviously, Lauren and I are two white people, so you may be calling it a little BS, but I think now more than ever, white people need to be aware and listening as well. You need to be supporting your black friends, family members, support the people protesting, do your part to educate yourself, and don't ask black people to help you because it's not their job. It's your job to do it. If you're financially comfortable enough to donate, do that. Lauren's going to tell some great organizations in just a little bit that you can donate to if you're financially available. But, when all the dust settles after all of this, which hopefully it eventually will, we need to continue this fight. We can't lose sight of the goal here. And it may be hard, it may be uncomfortable, but it's not nearly as uncomfortable as having to watch your own people getting senselessly murdered and locked up simply due to the color of their skin. So, in the theme of that, and because we are a podcast that talks about art and entertainment, we wanted to provide a list of great works from black artists and creators, so we'll be providing those links in the description, not the description box below. This is not a YouTube video, but in the description. Some of them are for entertainment, some of them are for learning. But all are great works of art created by black people, so we should be supporting that. One thing that I will say as well, once again, if you are financially, if it's a financially viable option for you, actually purchasing these from black-owned bookstores, or even just purchasing them in general, because a lot of these you probably find PDFs of online, but in order to truly support those creators, you can also educate yourself and support them by actually purchasing them.
Absolutely. And I know that there is actually, if you're looking for books, so I know I just bought Stamped from the Beginning on Kindle on Amazon, and there's actually something you can do on buying Kindle books right now, where for a lot of books that deal with history of racism in America and things like that are written by black people and black writers, you can get a credit back when you purchase some of these books. I think it's called a Great for Kindle or something like that.
Oh, cool. I did not know that, actually.
Yeah, I just found it out when I bought Stamped from the Beginning. But if you buy those books, you might get, I think I got $1.95 back that I definitely plan to use to purchase another similar book on Kindle. So feel free to look into that. As Jackson said, there is a lot of momentum right now, but we've seen it time and time again where there's an instance of police brutality where a Black person is killed for no reason, sometimes even in their own homes or in their own backyards. And there's always a brief moment where, you know, everyone's tweeting Black Lives Matter and everyone's posting about it, and then it dies down and nothing changes. So we really hope this can be the time that there's change. So don't let the fire die inside of you. It shouldn't just be Black people's job to fight for this. Mm-hmm. And yeah, do your best to do your part. So a few organizations that we encourage you to support and have supported. Minnesota Freedom Fund has been a really big popular one recently. They have actually gotten so many donations that they have asked that you redirect some of your donations to other organizations. A couple of the ones that they've suggested are Reclaim the Block and North Star Health Collective. North Star Health Collective, I think, is a really cool one. Basically what they do is help provide medical aid for protesters, I believe primarily in Minnesota. They also have a mutual fund for Black people who are struggling to deal with medical expenses, specifically dealing with COVID-19. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a really cool organization. And
fun fact, Black people are disproportionately affected by COVID. So Absolutely. This would be a great one. Yeah. Not a fun fact, sorry.
That's a not fun fact.
An unfortunate fact.
Another great one is the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. This basically helps people who are arrested and charged with various crimes because they have been protesting and fighting for their own rights. Also, look up local and state bailout funds for protesters in your area. You can do it anywhere in the country. But that's something that I guess you can make a little bit closer to home. Mm-hmm. I know we're originally from North Carolina. There is a North Carolina bailout fund that basically just helps people who are arrested because of protesting make bail. Mm-hmm.
And, you know, right now, Lauren and I are recording this on Tuesday. This episode will be released on Friday. So it's even possible that by the time we get there, some of these places will have, be in a similar situation to the Minnesota Freedom Fund, where they may think they have enough funds for now and may want to redirect your donations somewhere else. If that's the case, just do your research on all of these. Just make sure. And then, you know, there are plenty of other great organizations and funds that we haven't mentioned. If one you feel like hits closer to home for you, donate to that one. But if you can, do your part. Because we all need to be doing something.
If you don't feel like you are financially able to donate to these organizations right now, you can also do your part by sharing them, because there are people who are able to do something like that. Mm-hmm. But yeah.
Okay, so now we're going to continue after that tough conversation that needed to be had. So now we're going to get into our Detours of the Week. And our Detours, as you know if you've listened to this podcast, and if not, here you go. Our Detours is something that we have watched, seen, read over the past week that we would recommend to all of you. So, Lauren, do you want to go first with yours?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
So this past week, I watched the Netflix documentary Cheer. And it's about the Navarro College, or sometimes they pronounce it Navarro, but I feel like most of the time it was Navarro. But it is a community college in Texas that is sort of widely known as the best junior college cheerleading team in the country. And the documentary basically follows this cheer team's journey to the biggest competition of the year in Daytona. And it's really interesting to watch. You know, there are 40 people on the team. There are only 20 who are actually going to be able to compete and be on the mat. They always call it on the mat or making the mat in the final competition. And the stunts they do and the moves they learn are just insane. I had a short stint in not professional cheerleading. I was definitely not
Lauren was a professional cheerleader.
No, I was not. I was a competitive cheerleader.
I was going to ask you sort of your experience and how it affected the way you viewed it.
Definitely. Well, so I did competitive cheerleading just for 3 years from like 3rd to 5th grade. So I was definitely not anywhere near the level that these people were.
Don't let her lie to you. She was in the big league.
But you know, I mean, okay, well, no, but like we did compete, you know, in sort of statewide and even some that were just in the Southeast, some competitions. We would go to Myrtle Beach once a year.
Myrtle Beach is the big time, so you made it.
Okay, thanks, Jackson. But, you know, I mean, we did some of these basic stunts and, you know, there were injuries that happened. Nothing on the level that happened in this documentary, but, we would do stunts. Sometimes people would lose fingernails. Sometimes people would get dropped. I remember one time I was basing a girl and she got thrown just a little off kilter and she landed on my chest and I fell over and, thankfully kept my head tucked in enough that I didn't hit my head on the concrete because I was pretty close. But it's a very high risk thing, but it also feels so good when you finally get that difficult move or you finally, get your back handspring or your back tuck, or I think the hardest thing they did was a full, which is insane.
I don't even know what that means, but it sounds tough.
It's a lot, but it's a huge team building experience. It's really, really hard work. And I think that there are still a lot of people who don't consider cheerleading to be a sport. And I don't necessarily consider it a sport when your role is cheering for another team. But in this case, when your cheerleading team itself is competing and everyone in the team is honestly putting their lives on the line for their sport, it is a sport. It really goes through the lives of the different people on the team and their background and how finding cheerleading has sort of helped them figure out what their priorities were and finding a way to bond with other people and find something that they were really passionate about. So yeah, it's a very well done documentary. I think it definitely did resonate with me just from having that little bit of competitive cheerleading experience.
Yeah.
But it's an awesome documentary for anyone.
Yeah. Cheerleaders are tough, man. I don't know.
Well, Jackson probably watched it for just he was kind of in and out on it, But it's every few minutes someone would be checked out because they might have a concussion,
Yeah.
It's the stuff they were doing is crazy.
Yeah, and just the fact of, I've run the gamut of sports that I've played, mostly, just as a kid, but soccer, baseball, football, basketball, all stuff like that, and I've always wanted to learn how to do a backflip, but I've always been so scared to try because I'm scared of landing on my head, busting my neck or something like that. And cheerleaders, they do that stuff every day. And like you said, they get injured every day. It was also interesting to hear, because, I watched maybe an episode of it, but just hear them talk about how their injuries sort of affected them throughout the rest of their life. Because, you can only cheer for a certain amount of time before it kind of ruins your body.
Well, and also with cheerleading, another thing that they talk about is that beyond the college level, there is really nothing you can do in terms of cheerleading because you can go cheer for an NFL team, but you're not doing anywhere near the level of stunts and tumbling that you're doing on a college team. And also, I don't know that there's an NFL team that has men on the cheerleading team. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Not to my knowledge. My knowledge isn't as vast as it could be, but there are a lot of men in the cheer documentary on the Navarro team, and it's interesting to hear them talk about how a lot of them grew up playing football or playing another sport that they felt kind of pushed into, and then they really found their home in cheerleading, which was sometimes tough to reconcile with some of their family and friends because, it's not necessarily a conventional male activity, but it's something that they really loved and found a home in. Yeah, which is really cool. I appreciated that from the episode I saw. So, are you done with done with cheer? Okay, cool. Actually, you were done with cheer in 5th grade, but now you're really done with cheer. Okay. Your career ended early. So I am gonna sort of switch gears back to a bit of what we were talking about before, actually, and talk about actually one of the movies that is on one of the list in our description box. So this movie, it's a documentary called 13th. It was released in 2016, written and directed by Ava DuVernay, also written by Stephen Averick. So basically, the film sort of, as the title alludes to, is about the 13th Amendment, which, as we all know, abolished slavery, asterisk, except as a punishment for conviction of a crime. So it ended involuntary servitude, aka slavery, except as a punishment for the conviction of a crime. AKA, it kind
didn't really end slavery.
Yeah, and it kind of, out of that, grew this system of mass incarceration, which is still very, very much with us today. There's a statistic that starts the beginning of the film, that the United States has 5% of the world's population, but 25% of the world's prison population. Which is a staggering statistic to think about. So there's a lot of really great, smart, intelligent people and activists, from Cory Booker, presidential candidate, a Democratic presidential candidate this past year, Angela Davis, activist, Brian Stevenson, author, activist, who wrote Just Mercy, I believe. I think. Yeah. I read Just Mercy, which is another fantastic book you should read. But I believe that was Brian Stevenson was the author. So yeah, the film sort of explores from post-Civil War era until now, and how the prison system has become privatized. It explored through like the 70s and 80s, through the war on drugs, which all these thinly veiled attempts to sort of mask the prison system into something that it's not. And what it is sort of a way for people to make money, unfortunately. Yeah. As even there are far too many private prisons. Luckily things have been changing, but still not nearly in the way they need to be. Yeah. But sort of it talks about the way the private prison system has even infiltrated the public prison system, and how people who are interested in making money have influenced lawmakers into making laws that would once again put money back into their pockets. Yeah. And essentially, if you are a private business who either works building prisons or provides foods for prisons, whatever, things like that, your profit comes from the amount of people who are in prison. Exactly. Therefore, it is technically in your best interest to have more people in prison. And so it sort of talks about that cycle. It's really eye-opening, truthfully. If you don't know much about this, which it's far overdue for me watching this documentary, and it's definitely eye-opening, really good, and written and directed by Ava DuVernay, who is an incredible writer and director. She, I'm not sure if she wrote, but I know she directed Selma, which is the Martin Luther King Jr. biopic, and she also wrote and directed When They See Us, the limited series that was on Netflix last year or a couple years ago. Yeah. It's a great documentary, so check it out. It's on that list. Check it out.
Yeah, and I watched 13th a couple years ago when I was working at Governor's School in North Carolina. They showed it for, it was required viewing for everyone, which was awesome, teachers and students included. And I think the one thing that really struck me was that I knew that this was a problem, but I had no idea how many organizations I was familiar with and I had, bought products from or things like that were involved in this. The scale of it is really just staggering. So I know they talk about, I guess, sort of an organization made up of a whole bunch of different corporations called ALEC that has sort of been heading up.
I think it's ALEC.
ALEC? Okay. Yeah. ALEC that has been basically pushing these laws that will put more money in their pockets and make the prison system even more profitable. And, it's organizations like, I know Aramark is in there. Just ones that it's not just these few select racist people that are the problem. It's the whole society.
Yeah. But it's very informative and very well done as a documentary as a whole. So definitely check that one out. It's on Netflix, so if you have a Netflix subscription, very easy. Cheer is also on Netflix. I think you mentioned
Cheer is
that,
also on Netflix.
But just wanted to reiterate that for everyone.
Yeah. So to get to our play for this week. This week we're going to be reading Explore With Us by Matthew Keith. It is a short screenplay about some flight attendants.
Yeah. So it's really good. Matthew Keith has been mentioned on this podcast before, as we talk about in the
we'll
interview.
Be actually talking to him today.
Yes, we will. So that is coming up next. Welcome back to the Green Light Podcast.
Green Light?
Green Light.
There we go. That's amazing. I'm Jackson.
I'm Lauren.
As you all know. And we have two special guests, previous guests on this podcast, but special nonetheless. Jacob Wishnick is back with us, everybody.
Hello.
Jacob, lovely to have you back on the pod.
Good
How
to
have you
be
been?
I've been good, you know.
Yeah.
Downstairs.
Yeah, I was gonna say we really know how you've been since we live with you, but
Do you?
Oh.
Whoa.
Check in, everyone, with your friends.
True. True.
No, I've been great. No, it's been a stellar time in this mega house of ours.
Yes, very true.
Yeah.
Very true. And we have Tori Jewell back with us. Tori, how are you today?
Me personally, I am healthy, which is always to be thankful for.
Yeah.
There's plenty going on in the world that is heartbreaking. So finding moments of joy is a surprise.
Yeah.
Here.
Yeah.
Here.
For sure. We unfortunately...
Anyway, start off on the high note.
Yeah. We unfortunately only have about, like a month left with you, Tori? In
Yeah,
this house?
18 days. Not that I'm counting.
Wow, that's sad. So
Sounds like she's counting.
we'll bring you on as much as we can to this podcast, also out of necessity.
Yes.
But anyways, without further ado, let us begin. So we'll go off with a little bit of character descriptions first. I will be playing all of the male roles.
Yes.
There are 2, so that will be my task for this.
I will be playing Marianne Peaks. Marianne Peaks is 26. She is preemptively unimpressed and witty.
I will be reading Grace Rutherford. She's 27, a Southern belle with a bite.
And I'm Jacob, and I'm gonna be reading the stage directions.
Yes, sir.
Which I guess are action lines, but
They are
you
action
choose
lines.
We
to
always-
start
No,
me saying that.
it's always me. I always say stage directions for action lines.
See, but like, I am not as involved with theater. I should know that they're action lines.
Yeah, it's we've infected you, Jacob. We apologize.
You know what? Don't need to.
Aw.
Aw. Wow.
Alrighty. In that case,
Let's get into it.
Interior airplane day. Present day. Marianne Peaks and Grace Rutherford welcome passengers on the plane in their old-fashioned blue flight attendant uniforms. They wear pins saying, "Explore with us." While one welcomes, the other comments through gritted teeth and a fake smile. A handsome businessman, 40s, with Bluetooth earbuds, walks in texting.
Welcome aboard.
Small dick.
A woman, 68, with a floppy hat, sunglasses, and earplugs, hopples on with feigned grace.
How are you today, ma'am?
Drunk since 42.
Marianne stifles a laugh. 2 young boys, 4 and 6, crash into the aisle, followed by their 2 pregnant mom and greasy dad. The dad smiles slyly at Grace.
Afternoon, sir.
Sleeping with a babysitter. Or you.
Grace elbows Marianne playfully, and Marianne lets out a laugh. Interior plane aisle later. Marianne stands at the front of the plane holding the intercom phone. Grace stands halfway down the aisle with an example belt buckle and a life vest around her neck.
There are 6 exits. 2 in the back, 2 in the middle, and 2 at the front for Grace and I to use with the only 2 parachutes on board.
Passengers laugh.
Marianne laughs facetiously, joylessly.
Grace points to the exit, holding her plastic smile. Interior plane aisle later. Grace pushes the drink cart further back in the plane. Her eyes open wide, violently. She turns around with flaming eyes to see the greasy dad holding her thigh tightly. He lets go. His wife is asleep in the row in front of him. The 2 boys asleep next to him. He lets go and flushes his eyebrow at Grace. She takes a deep breath and continues forward, fuming but composed. She looks at the sleeping wife with pity. Interior plane later. Marianne and Grace watch the last passengers get off the plane. The jet bridge is covered in dirt and faded white paint. Marianne chomps on pretzels from the plane and pockets 2 airplane bottles of Jack Daniels. While chewing, she talks to a tired Grace in a mocking transatlantic accent.
The glitz and glam of air travel, baby.
Bossa Nova music begins.
Grace slides down the wall, sighing.
Interior hotel bar night. Grace and Marianne sit at the bar facing Sanford, 42, a suit on a business trip fulfilling some 1960s Pan Am fantasy. He stands wearing a ring. Grace, with a cosmopolitan, listens intently for something new or impressive. Marianne slowly chugs her old-fashioned, watching him dryly.
So at that point I told him he realistically had 3 more years left of the firm, and that shut him right up. Sign the acquisition right there.
He sips his whiskey on the rocks and tries not to appear fazed. Marianne finishes her long sip and the drink.
That's quite impressive.
Marianne cocks her head and flashes her eyes with weakly acted flirtation. She holds out her glass to him.
Almost as impressive as another drink.
Easily swooned, he takes it from her and goes to the bartender away from the girls.
Your pick for the night?
I'll give it another 10 to see. Not the most interesting guy I've ever met.
Grace rubs her finger around the rim of the glass.
He makes for good alcohol.
Why don't you ever talk to any guys yourself?
Honestly getting bored of the nightly routine here.
Sanford comes back and presents the glass to Marianne. She feigns excited surprise.
Oh, hey! There's the big man!
He's flattered. Marianne stands and whispers into his ear away from Grace.
She's pretty easy with one more in her. Thanks, champ.
She pats his chest with her free hand and walks out of the bar with the drink to go to her room. He watches her leave with shock. Grace gets riled up.
Now, what did she say?
Sanford lifts his hand to the bartender and shouts.
One more for her, please.
Interior, Marianne's hotel room. Same. Marianne sits in bed flipping mindlessly through the channels on her TV. We hear old-timey commercials with empty glamour. She sips her drink. She looks out the window to nondescript skyscrapers. Exterior, various cities. Montage of their post-flying routine. Plane. We see a plane land. Marianne and Grace clean. Marianne looks out to the ugly concrete mass of the airport. Airport. Grace and Marianne walk behind pilots, all lugging suitcases and getting in cabs. Hotel. Marianne comes out of her room dressed in nice civilian clothes to meet Grace. She gestures, "How do I look?" although she doesn't quite care. The two walk to hotel bar. Grace and Marianne talk to another man. Marianne plays with an earring absentmindedly, drinking fast, Grace talking.
Another hotel bar. A different man talks to each Grace and Marianne. Marianne feigns a smile. Grace looks to her for help as the other man puts his hand on her shoulder. Different hotel bar. Marianne sits on the other side of the bar from Grace. Marianne finished tossing a nut in the air, catching it with her mouth. She drinks, watches, and laughs as Grace talks to an older man. The man shows Grace a photo of him from Vietnam.
Another bar. Marianne and Grace down multiple drinks and flashes, each bored of the situation. Intercuts between drinks of 1960s videos of women at a Hawaiian luau, people driving up Cal Highway 1 in a convertible, and couples skiing in Europe. Aged. Lost opportunities. Interior hotel lobby night. Grace and Marianne walk toward the entrance to a bar with worn cocktail dresses. Both seem tired of the tradition.
I can't believe I'm saying it, but one more drink, then I'm leaving.
Love the enthusiasm, but I'll be a bit longer. I don't even taste the alcohol now until my third.
Grace laughs and elbows Marianne. Interior hotel bar. Grace and Marianne sit with the usual drinks. The bar is 60s chic with warm lighting. Something with the lighting is off. We see the girls silently turn away multiple men who walk up. Grace finishes a drink. We see Marianne hold hers with one sip left. Grace stands to leave, but Marianne spots a guy at the end of the bar with a holstered pistol. He's Davis Birch, 28, a scruffy farm boy with lots to compensate for. He wears flannel and heavy boots, scruffy face.
Hold on a second. I want to try something.
Marianne, him? You have weird taste, but him?
I'm not. Come with me. You're cut from the same cloth. I'll need you.
Marianne grabs Grace's arm and walks towards Davis.
As who? Farm boy?
Marianne leans against the bar next to Davis. He looks up at her from his beer.
Would you mind if we joined you?
Not at all.
I'm Jane. This is my friend Savannah.
Grace gives Marianne a look. Accent? Names? Davis eyes her, interested.
Pleasure to meet y'all.
Marianne eyes the gun at his hip and smiles charmingly at him.
Let's get you something a little stronger.
Exterior hotel parking lot. Davis smokes a cigarette and lights one in Marianne's mouth. Marianne has changed into darker, warmer clothes. You can see her breath. Her eyes are excited. She isn't letting on her idea. Davis eyes her and she plays the flirty part. He's drunk.
You sure you don't want to just stay here? We could always get up to some trouble upstairs.
He wraps his arms around her waist. She keeps her face at a distance.
Well, you know I'd like that too, but Savannah has some other ideas.
Oh, we don't have to listen to her.
You like us both now, don't you?
He does. He fights himself over this when Grace comes out of the door, dressed darkly and warmly.
She looks uneasy.
I guess we better get a move on.
She leads them away from the hotel. Grace trails a bit.
What are you getting me into?
Exterior city street later that night. The three exit a bar laughing and stumbling. Davis is having the most fun. Grace is letting loose. He puts his arm around the two.
Time to head back, ladies.
Marianne looks around intentionally. She looks at a corner store as they walk down the sidewalk. We get a sense she eyed it before they went into the bar. She stops them.
Let's make one more stop.
Oh, come on.
I promise, you'll get a kick out of it.
Exterior corner store. They stand outside of the store, Grace and Davis, giggling.
Go ahead, Jane. We'll wait for you out here.
But I want you to do something for me, baby.
Anything you ask.
Do you like me?
Oh, of course I do. I've been saying it all night.
She gets close to his face, her eyes hypnotically sultry.
What would you do for me, baby?
Tonight? Anything.
You want me?
He nods. He's hungry.
Yeah? I want you to use that gun of yours and rob the place.
She's dead serious and sexy to him. He laughs.
I can't believe her, can you?
What, are you afraid?
He laughs half-heartedly. He isn't paying much attention.
I ain't afraid of nothing.
Then why don't you do it for me, baby?
Grace realizes she's not kidding.
Marianne, what are you...
Davis turns to Grace.
It's Jane, honey. You had too much.
Marianne grabs his face and turns it back to her.
Do it for Savannah and I, baby. We want some excitement.
She flashes a look to Grace. Her eyes flash. Told you this would be fun.
I'm all right with just going back to the hotel.
Yeah, it seems like a bad idea.
Marianne's hurt by Grace's commitment.
I thought you liked bad ideas. I thought you were more fun than that.
He opens his mouth, but has no words.
I mean,
We can split the money. You get half, she and I'll split the other half.
You're not...
Dead serious. Do it. For us.
She puts her hand on his chest and talks close to his face.
I want to see you hold that gun.
He breathes heavily, holding eye contact. She cocks her head at him. He slowly nods. He takes his gun in his hand and rounds the corner into the door. Grace rushes to Marianne's side as Marianne watches.
What the fuck are you doing?
Isn't this fun?
It's just fucked, Marianne. We can't let him do this.
Marianne watches through the window closely. She doesn't take her eyes off of Davis as he yells at the cashier, gun pointed.
We should probably go to the other side of the street or something.
What?
Don't want to draw attention.
Marianne moves to the crosswalk and Grace follows. Marianne is sharply focused. After a few seconds, the walk sign flips on. Marianne walks calmly and Grace follows.
We're gonna wait for him, right?
On the other side of the street, Grace looks back to the store. Davis stuffs cash into his jacket pocket. Marianne continues walking forward briskly. Grace turns around to see she's fallen behind Marianne.
Marianne, wait!
Come on!
We should wait!
Marianne doesn't stop or turn back. She begins to cross another street. Grace rushes to catch up. Exterior, another block. Same. Marianne, on the other block, turns off the street they have been following and continues down another street.
What the fuck?
Marianne, with glazed-over eyes, looks around at the cars for a moment and waves for a cab. A cab pulls over to them, and Grace grabs Marianne's arm.
Marianne, we're not going to leave him.
We don't even know him. He'll be all right.
Marianne opens the cab door.
Don't overthink. Just feel what that feels like.
Marianne smiles at her as if she's given her a gift and gets in the cab. Grace looks around the street worriedly before getting in the cab too. Exterior corner store. Davis, breathing heavily, looks around for them. His rush deflates when he realizes they're gone. He runs down the street in a panic. Interior hotel lobby. Marianne and Grace walk through the lobby toward the elevators. Neither looks at the other. Marianne's exhausted and savoring a runner's high. Grace is numb. They get in the elevators and close the door. Interior plane morning.
The two stand greeting passengers as they board the plane. Grace forces a smile. Marianne holds her fake smile all too well.
Welcome aboard.
Marianne notices Grace didn't comment. Another person passes.
Good morning, sir.
Child molester.
That's awful.
Grace readjusts her smile, doesn't look at Marianne. Marianne flashes her eyes at Grace confused. She shakes it off and looks back to the passengers. Interior plane aisle, same. Marianne holds the intercom phone. Grace stands again, demonstrating safety feature. We see Grace's face struggling to hold that plastic smile. We see Marianne looming behind her at the front of the plane.
There are 6 exits, 2 in the back, 2 in the middle, and 2 at the front for Grace and I to use with the only 2 parachutes on board.
The cabin laughs. We hear Marianne's facetious laugh over the intercom. Grace looks nervously at passengers around her as she forces a laugh.
Thank you again for choosing Atlantic Airlines. It's our pleasure to have you aboard to explore with us.
We see Grace fidget at hearing this, with Marianne in the background. Black.
Alrighty, welcome back, everybody, to the Green Light.
Green light.
Thank you, Lauren. One of us has to do it, I feel like, every time.
Yeah.
It's kind of a curse.
If you do the introductions, I have to do it. It's just a back and forth.
a curse that we've bestowed upon ourselves.
Yeah.
So, I am Jackson, as you know.
I am Lauren.
Yes, and we are here with the lovely, lovely writer of Explore With Us, Matthew Keith. Matthew, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. How about you all?
We're doing great. Matthew actually has made, I guess not himself made an appearance on this podcast, but has been mentioned on this podcast, episode 1, remember?
Oh, that's true.
Ellie mentioned him
Yeah.
as part of the inspiration for one of her characters. So
I was so honored.
yeah. Well, you know, now you get the full honor of being on the Greenlight award-winning podcast if you talk to my
I
brain.
wish.
God.
Maybe someday.
Yeah, maybe. But, you know, how about you start us off by just telling us a little bit about yourself, Matthew?
Sure. So, as it's been mentioned, my name's Matthew Keith. I'm a rising senior at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. I'm double majoring in dramatic arts and communications with a writing for the screen and stage minor. From Franklin, Tennessee originally, and been screenwriting for about a few years now.
Nice.
That is fantastic.
Well, to expand a little bit upon that, we want to know what your writer origin story is. So if there's a specific piece or a specific film or play or anything that sort of inspired you, how did you get started?
Sure. So, my writer origin story.
Yes, sir. We're starting off with
So-
the tough ones. Tough ones
Yeah.
from the beginning.
The first script I wrote, actually, I wrote a little bit of fiction, like creative fiction, early in school, and especially when I came to college, started kind of exploring that more. Explore.
Ooh, that will come back later.
It will. That's important. But I wrote my first actually feature script the summer before my junior year of college, and it was based off of an idea I got while working as a cashier at Publix supermarkets, listening to a Boz Scaggs song that would come on every shift I had.
That's great.
So it was a comedy about roller skating and college life, and from there I just dug deeper, wrote more, and started taking classes. So
Cool.
Yeah, we're gonna get back to you writing feature-length films at a young age, but that comes a bit later, Matthew. So keep that in the back of your mind.
it always is.
So we noticed when we were looking at your character descriptions
This
that...
is in the script. We're
Yes,
gonna
we're
dive into
branching-
the script now. Explore with us, the masterpiece
Yes,
from Matthew
we are
Keith.
exploring Explore With Us and ask you to explore with us.
Nice.
So, oh my god. So we noticed with your character descriptions that, you know, you don't necessarily describe what the character looks like, but you do a great job of very succinctly expressing, I guess, that person's essence. You know, you say, Marianne is preemptively unimpressed and witty. Grace is a Southern belle with a bite. And I feel like you can picture that person and you know exactly who that person is and how they're going to react to every scenario with just that little phrase. So I guess, what is your reasoning behind that? Do you have a very specific person or type of person in your head when you write these character descriptions, or are you just sort of, I don't know, you just want to give us a pretty good idea and then let the actor go for it?
Interesting. I think it's probably because when I write characters, just kind of in my head, I think about personality first. And like, you know, the witty or Southern belle with a bite, I'm thinking of like how she would react to something, like what kind of voice she would use and put on depending on the situation. So I guess reactions, personality, and I don't know. I've never really thought about it as like a breakdownable science, but I kind of in my head can see what they would look like based off of that. They're like facial expressions they might have when they talk.
Yeah, because I feel like with the character descriptions, again, it really doesn't describe what they look like or even necessarily what they sound like, but it very much describes, like you said, what facial expressions they'd have or what tone they would use with their voice, which I think is really interesting. Because so many times you read a character description, it's like 22, female, pretty.
Yeah, very. Yeah, I feel like a lot of times they're very objective, whereas yours has a little bit of subjectiveness to it.
Yeah.
Subjectivity,
I think.
Subjectivity.
Yeah.
Sorry for my grammar, everyone. but yeah, and I like that because I feel like it almost makes it personal to whoever's reading it. Like, I feel like there is a general idea of what a Southern Belle with a bite would be, but then for each person that might look a little bit different. Maybe someone else can picture someone from their own life who's they consider a Southern Belle with a bite, so they can sort of put that in there in place of it, which I think is really cool.
Yeah,
I like that sort of freedom.
And at the same time, sometimes you get much longer character descriptions, and it's like with everything they say to describe that character, it excludes more people who could play that role. So if you say, oh, they have to have this hair color and this eye color, which you see so often, I think that that's something that doesn't necessarily contribute to the personality of the character. So I felt like with your character descriptions, especially with people having to write, what is it called? Writing copy? I feel so dumb.
What context?
Oh, covering a script. Yes.
Covering a script.
That's what I mean.
That's the word.
But for the purposes of casting, I feel like that gives you a much better idea of who would actually be a good fit for this role rather than just what this character should look like. So yeah, that was cool.
Thank you.
Yeah. We're going to be heaping praises upon you throughout this whole interview, Matthew, so don't worry.
Can you call me every day then?
Yes, absolutely. We'll set up a time and everything. We'll get it on a schedule.
This is your morning compliment.
Yeah. So what I loved the character of Marianne. Marianne, right?
Yes.
That's the correct pronunciation. I guess there isn't really another one, right?
Marianne, maybe?
Or Marianne.
I was thinking Marianne.
Okay, cool. Marianne. Yeah. So
it is now Marianne.
You have two characters, who are surrounded by people as flight attendants who are constantly going to explore somewhere new. The slogan, the title of the film is "Explore with Us." However, as you sort of write in the script, their lives are very boring and cyclical. And, this script, I feel like, kind of is, we see both of them strive to, like, almost feel something, I guess, and you see Grace sort of try to find that in the men that she meets, like, the businessman, Vietnam veteran, whoever, and then, but Marianne is sort of different, and that the way she does it is sort of almost through other people, like, the way that she gets, Davis, correct? That's his name?
Davis.
I am just exposing myself today. Davis, getting him to like rob a store and then just leaving him. So I guess sort of my question was, I would love for you to talk about Marianne as a character, and then sort of why does she choose this route instead of just like, I don't know, like doing a line of coke or something like that? Like why is this the route that she takes to try to feel something?
Sure. Yeah, I find Marianne interesting and honestly kind of hard to wrestle with. I've thought about kind of writing more for these characters, but I feel like I need to really spend some more time with her because she's a bit of a mystery to me. Because both of them, you get this glitz and glamour from the idea of maybe being a flight attendant, especially like an old 60s image of Pan Am flight attendants who get to explore the world and are like adventuring every day. But the reality is they fly somewhere, serve people, go to a hotel, sleep, repeat. And so Grace's way of, I guess, coping with that or keeping things interesting is she can meet different men at bars just to keep her company. Honestly, probably more for that than for anything else.
Sure.
She's just lonely. And Marianne, I think, doesn't quite have such a clear appetite even to herself for her boredom. And so really she has this need to feel something, like you said. I think that was a great description. She's looking for thrills, but cheap thrills are just that for her, very cheap, quick. A line of coke, she's probably done it, probably liked it, but probably got bored after the second.
Sure.
And so I think she's got something building inside of her, and she doesn't know where to put it, what's going to make her feel fulfilled. And so I think that mission with Davis trying to get him to rob the store was just her latest attempt to feel something through others, being kind of the laid back observer that she is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I love how you mentioned, like, you know, she probably has done a line of coke, and after the second one she was bored, because, you know, you talk about in the script, she has that line of, like, oh, I'm gonna need to stay a little longer at the bar when Grace says she's gonna come home early, because Marianne's like, I need, like, 3 drinks to even start to feel it. So that kind of speaks to, like, the numbness that you're talking about, how she's just so, like, numb to everything.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting how, you know, the characters aren't necessarily super likable people to people who are on the outside, but at the same time you do empathize with them, and just you know, just sort of think about, well, I really have no idea how I would react in that situation because I'm not in that situation, you know. So yeah, I found that really interesting. I kind of like when I read a script and, you know, there aren't necessarily golden girls, I guess, for characters.
No Betty White in this script, I can tell you that
Betty
right
White
now.
in the script.
Grace could be Blanche, maybe, but
True.
There you go.
True.
I can see it.
that's actually a very good point.
Yeah.
No Betty's, Blanche, maybe.
I do like Grace better than I like Blanche,
Yeah.
to be honest. But so
If you don't mind, actually, while we're talking about Marianne, I'm
Sure.
gonna go off script. Our script.
whoa.
I'm gonna
Oh
go
my
off our
God.
script. I know, and then ask you another question about Marianne while we're on her.
okay.
And sort of from the perspective of the story. So it sort of feels like, you know, we're seeing a lot of this, maybe not directly, but sort of from the side of, like, Marianne. Like, we see her, like, you know, being alone while Grace goes and, like, you know, talks to men, whatever. But at the same time, you know, she hides things from the audience too. Like, we don't know what she's doing with Davis until she actually does it, kind of in the same way that, like, Grace does. So it's like, you know, like, we're over her shoulder, but she isn't letting us sort of, like, read, like, the text that she just got or the book she's whatever. She's like, you know, we're kind of looking at it from behind her, but we're not able to see everything. So I'd love to hear you sort of talk about, like, the perspective and sort of what you were trying to do when you were writing the script.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's really interesting what you said about we're looking over her shoulder. I think that's pretty apt. We're looking over Marianne's shoulder, but we're definitely not in her head.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would say she's the protagonist, but we as audience members are Grace, I think. So although we're keeping our closest eye on Marianne, so is Grace, and all the new things, the new and exciting things come from her impulses and her wants that she might not even understand, but we certainly don't until we see what happens. So I think I initially wrote this as kind of a dual protagonist kind of buddy idea.
Sure.
And like, I think that the intro scene to me was like that relationship forming. They're joking with each other, making fun of people coming on the plane under their breath, which was just kind of a fun bit for me. But honestly, I wasn't planning to have necessarily Marianne do what she does with Davis, and especially what she does to Grace by implicating her in it all.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess it initially came from the script was supposed to be flight attendants robbing gas stations at each stop.
Interesting. Okay.
But you know, that kind of didn't pan out for me, and I couldn't find a way to make that feel true for the characters. And so then as I was exploring these two women that I had started writing, that impulse found me the way it kind of finds Marianne, where it's just something she felt the one night and decided to follow through with just to see where it went, no matter who it affected around her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it surprised me too.
Yeah, and I do find it really interesting that you're, you know, it seems like you're sort of approaching this where you're not a writer who, you know, creates outlines and has the whole plot lined out. I think it's really interesting that you're sort of following the characters through their own stories rather than just, I guess, I don't know, creating the plot first and sort of adapting the character to that.
And I've totally made that mistake. For me, I've written stuff plot first, character second, and it's always hollow when I write it that way. And I do outline, actually, but I do outline from character first. Really, really try to spend some time with who they would be before I put them in a situation where I have to be responsible for knowing what decision they would make. So I appreciate you saying that, because I've been working a lot harder to try to go character first, because I think that takes me places even that I don't expect and find interesting.
Yeah.
I do find interesting, but...
So you're an actor and a writer, and both of those things require an incredible amount of vulnerability. And I would love to hear you talk about the differences between those experiences and also how each one affects the other. So it does seem like, you know, if you're focusing on character first, that seems like that might be a little bit of the actor side of you affecting that. But I would just love to hear you talk about how acting affects your writing and vice versa.
Absolutely, absolutely. And thank you for bringing that up, because that actually reminds me of oh shoot, now I'm blanking. Edit this out.
We're keeping everything, Matthew.
It's real this way.
Yeah.
There you go.
I'll get back to it.
Okay.
Oh, no. Character descriptions. I think that the reason why I don't think about physicality as much as I do personality in my character descriptions does come from my actor brain rather than my writer brain first. Because as I write it, I try to think about how I would play the character, especially like subtle things like an eyebrow raise here, or how I would embody a snarky line to embody it rather than just say it. And so I'm trying to really think from the very beginning of how to embody these people. And I think I found that really tricky because I was an actor before a writer, so I was doing it with other people's lines and myself before I even, learned how to write and learned by trial and error even. But as I've been going and kind of get that more character-driven focus with my writing, I do look to do that acting work in a writing context of knowing who these people are, what their background was, their beliefs in certain ways, how they would respond to different, maybe normal questions, doing kind of tedious work like that.
Yeah.
Just to really know and inform each little situation that I might put them in, so I can get the most out of a single line rather than try to do more and show less.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I just, as actors, we appreciate that. Thank you for that.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Of course,
it's always
yeah.
really nice to read a script and see, like she raises her eyebrow at her, and I feel like a lot of times, if it is a well-written script, that conveys so much more than the screenwriter just saying everything that they're thinking.
Absolutely.
Or just being like, she cries.
Yeah, oh my
All the
gosh.
time.
Oh my gosh. If I see as she cries in a script as an actor, I guess he cries for me. But I'm like, alrighty.
Like, no.
Alrighty.
That's something I'm definitely still working on, but I think kind of continuing to do both simultaneously is really, really showing me things that, like, when I read a script, I have to act, and I'm like, oh my God, why do I, like, that line doesn't give me much.
Yeah.
And I can kind of use it to inform my writing later on, and,
For
vice
sure.
versa.
Yeah.
Totally, man. Totally. Okay, so I have a bit of a fun, interesting question for you.
Oh boy.
Do you think Grace and Marianne would be friends if they weren't coworkers?
Assuming that they have normal lives where they aren't traveling around all the time and can have normal non-coworker friends.
Mm-hmm.
I think absolutely not.
Yeah.
I think they're definitely friends by circumstance, and kind of the end of the script kind of lets you know that this is now a sort of trap for Grace
Yeah,
that
it's a
she
very
doesn't quite know
tense
how to get out of.
situation.
Yeah.
Right. I would love to think that they would be, but I can't honestly say yes.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where I was leaning to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna say no friends for Grace and Marianne.
Yeah. I feel like it definitely, I don't know, I definitely got the impression that because Grace has such a need to not be alone, that I think that's the only thing that could force her into a friendship with someone so different.
That's a good point.
Oh, that's true.
Astute.
Yeah, I had never thought about it that way.
Astute, Lauren.
Astute for sure.
So another kind of fun question. I always like to ask everybody this.
Our
What-
last script question, we
That's
think.
true.
Oh my
God.
Probably,
I'm excited.
unless we just come up with something to
Yeah.
bounce off of. What is your favorite moment in this script and why?
My favorite moment in this script.
Like you wrote it and you were like, "Ooh, that's good."
Let me think. I don't know. I really, really like all the beginning moments with Davis. Because God, I had so much fun writing this and thinking about how someone like Marianne, who is smart but also knew how to use her, like, oh my God, for lack of a better phrase, feminine wiles. But, could use her femininity against a very, like, stupid man.
Yes.
Yeah.
Who isn't even looking for a conversation. So when they're talking to Davis in the bar, and then when he's trying to convince them to stay, and she is kind of using words to go around him, but also still kind of like flirtation to keep him agreeing with her even when she's pushing him away. And I think something, she calls him a farm boy at some point, and I thought that was really funny.
Yeah.
Or Grace does, yeah.
Yeah. No, their interactions are hilarious. I would certainly also watch a spin-off movie with like Marianne and Davis like trapped on a deserted island.
Yeah.
Like I would certainly watch that.
Maybe that'll be a bonus episode someday.
There you go, Matthew. So you get started on that, you might make a return to this podcast, good sir.
The end credit scene.
Yeah, exactly. That would be hilarious. Okay. No more script for now. We're going to ask you about you, Matthew.
Oh.
So buckle in, big fella. And this is one that I promised we would get back to from the beginning. We teased it a little bit, and so now we're here.
Oh boy.
So we actually, I guess, we kind of worked together on it, though we were sort of at different points in the process. But you mentioned you wrote a feature length when you were before your junior year or before your sophomore year, whichever. But then you also were the head writer of a feature-length movie musical as a sophomore, correct? You were a sophomore when you wrote that, right?
I was, yeah.
Yeah. So just like tell us, what was that like? Like how it sort of changed you as a writer, as a person? Were you terrified? Were you excited? What was sort of going through you?
Oh boy. For Fix.
Yes. For Fix, to clarify.
I don't know. I don't remember if you named it, but it is called Fix.
Yes, it is.
That was a really, really good growth experience for me as a writer. I remember Nick Bafia and Julius Damey and the whole crew who were putting that together at UNC put out kind of a post or something, I don't know, asking for ideas for the movie musical because they wanted to produce one. And for some reason, my senior year of high school, one summer, I like wrote up a plot, and I was like, I want to write a musical, and tucked it away. Never thought I would be able to do it, and then brought it back out for this. They accepted it. We started writing, and myself and a group of 3 other writers started working on it, and 2
of whom have actually been on this podcast already. Actually,
yes,
both Ellie and Blake.
Yeah,
and then Wyatt Grinnan.
Yes,
the other one.
We'll get him on eventually, maybe.
Thank God. The whole Fix crew.
Exactly.
But it was really, really good for me because I had written my first feature the summer before. Didn't have anybody really to look at it because I was doing it alone, and I was like, that was great. I'm awesome. And then ended up being the head writer with 3 other much more experienced writers who knew everything that I didn't. It was like, how am I the one in charge? But really, it was great for collaboration. They helped me every step of the way when I didn't know what I was doing, and then also heard me out every step of the way when I really had a strong opinion on the story, something I thought should be changed, shouldn't be changed, etc. And really, really gave me, helped me get my sea legs as a writer. So I really, really have to thank them for that, for making that such a good growth experience for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great, man. That's great. Be on the lookout for Fix movie musical, maybe coming out later this year.
Wait,
Coming out
Jackson,
someday.
were you in that?
Maybe. We'll see.
Depends how well it's received.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Either it was me or my evil twin. But yeah, Lauren, I believe you have a question coming up.
Yeah. What was it like finishing up a semester of college during a global pandemic? How did your day-to-day life change?
Oh my God. Well, I'm currently standing in my apartment bedroom that I have spent more hours of my life in than I ever could have guessed.
Or probably ever wanted to.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was telling my roommates last night, I was saying, oh my God, every once in a while I forget that I have just been in this apartment like 18 hours plus a day for months.
Yeah.
But, online classes were kind of strange, but we continued to do our work. And I think, again, my friends were who got me through it. Okay, I'm very, very lucky to have been in the position I'm in to have a place to live, have access to like the internet, food, water, everything like that. It's been, I'm very thankful for that. But that's not to say that school was easy, and it was particularly fun. But it looks like hopefully we'll be able to go back in the fall. They've got plans in place to let us go back for our senior year. So I'm also just thankful that this wasn't my senior year.
Truthfully,
Yeah.
I can't imagine.
I'm very thankful that I graduated last year and feel so awful for everyone who graduated this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
I just can't imagine.
Yeah, so hopefully things will work out that you will get to have a proper graduation next year, Matthew.
I'm knocking on wood right now.
Yeah,
Can't see it.
me
This is
too,
a podcast, but I
very
am.
lightly, so it doesn't come over the mic.
Doesn't
but-
pick up on the
I
mic.
just did it,
Exactly.
so-
That's fine. If you heard that, then that was us knocking on wood.
Ooh.
And then I guess we have one final question, right?
Yeah.
So we do a segment on this show called Detours of the Week, which is basically us just either talking about something we watched or read or something like that
Yeah.
we would sort of recommend to other people.
But you already know that because you've listened to every single episode so far, I'm
True.
sure.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Oh, well, that's nice,
I
actually.
truly do feel like Matthew is one of our best listeners. So you get a gold star, Sir Matthew.
Gold star.
Yay.
But yeah, so do you have something that you would recommend to everyone as your detour of the week?
Can I do 2?
Yeah.
Sure, why not?
Oh, thank God.
We make the rules here, so whatever.
The first is just quick because I think everybody's doing it right now. But I admit I have never seen Avatar: The Last Airbender
Me
all the way
neither.
through.
I started it
Okay,
yesterday.
I'm among allies, but I have started, and I'm on book 2.
Oh, wow.
Where Aang's got to learn earthbending,
Yes.
and it is incredible.
Yes.
So highly recommend now that it's on Netflix if you have Netflix to watch that. And then the other thing that I just recently watched, I think for like the 5th time, one of my favorite movies of all time. I had my roommates all watch it, but Hayao Miyazaki's Princess Mononoke.
Okay.
It's a 1997 animated film about a prince who gets exiled from his village and stumbles upon a war between feudal Japanese cities, but also the humans are also at war with the animals of the forest. And so it's all about the politics of that and finding the balance of each. It's incredible.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
That's
2
awesome.
great suggestions
Yeah.
from Matthew. I guess, is that all we have?
I guess that's all we have
I guess
for
that's
you.
all. Thank you so much for coming on, Matthew. It was great.
Well, absolutely. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course.
Reading scripts.
And actually, okay, we always forget to ask people before we're doing the interview, so we're just going to do it on air, and if you say no, we'll cut it. But would you mind if we left your contact information, like your email, in the description of this episode, just in case people want to contact you to potentially produce this fine film that you wrote?
We won't
Oh my
put your phone
God.
number, just your email.
Yes.
Absolutely. Please do.
Okay, great.
Cool.
In that case, Matthew's information will be in the description box below.
Woohoo!
Yeah. Anything else that you would like to plug or anything, Matthew, before we head out?
Oh, man. This podcast.
Oh,
Aw.
well, thank you,
I'll plug
Matthew.
it on its own platform.
Yeah, exactly. kind of in a circle there, but that's okay.
I'm so creative.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Well,
thank you all so much.
of course.
Yeah,
thank
thank
you,
you
man.
so
This was a
much.
lot of fun, and it was great talking to you again.
You too. Stay safe.
Alrighty.
Yeah, you too.
Alrighty. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Just wanted to give another huge thank you to Matthew Keith for sending us his script and coming on to talk with us this week, and also to Nick Baffia, who's one of our housemates. Hopefully you're listening to this, Nick. We'll know if you haven't. But he always lets us use his microphone, which is a huge help.
Yes, I don't know if we've actually specifically thanked Nick yet. So yeah, he's been providing us with the equipment this whole time. Great guy, lovely man, always very supportive. And truthfully, he supports like everything that anyone does. So he probably does listen to our podcast, honestly.
Probably.
So thank you, Nick. Hopefully you're listening.
Yes. If you want to follow us on social media, you can find us at TGL Pod on Twitter and Instagram.
TGL_pod.
Oh, that's right. TGL
Don't you
underscore
forget
pod.
that underscore. Don't
Yeah.
you forget it.
But
No,
look for
sorry.
the-
I was pointing at you,
I
the
was so
people,
aggressive.
not aggressively at Lauren.
He
That
was
sounded
pointing
bad.
aggressively at the microphone.
Yes, correct.
But yeah, it's TGL underscore pod on Twitter
Yes.
and Instagram. We also do have a Facebook page. If you look up the Green Light podcast, I don't know, scroll until you find
We'll be
the
there.
light bulb.
Yeah.
We're there somewhere.
All of this should be in the description box, so if you can't understand us for some reason, it's in there.
Yeah.
And also, don't forget, also in the description is the different lists of movies, books, things by Black creators, so definitely be sure to check those out and get educated.
100%. And then if you have a chance, please donate to one of the organizations we talked about.
Yes.
And then just as a last little housekeeping thing, if you are able to rate and review us on iTunes, that would be really, really helpful. You can leave your detour of the week, or you can roast Jackson.
A roast of Jackson Campbell.
Yes.
Put me on the fire, smoke bit, put an apple in my mouth, and then we'll just roast away.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you guys for listening. See you
Thank
next week.
Bye-bye.